All right, here we go. Friday Fitness Files. It's our second go around of this. And this week I reached out on the Instagram and asked people to throw some ideas my way. Got some interesting stuff. One of my best friends, whose opinion I cherish and care about. You know, I love this person. Officiated their wedding. He just wrote to me, just snooze. He basically put the Z's in there, like snooze fest, boring. So maybe I need to ditch this, man. I just need to get a new angle, but whatever. Your friend, it's what you need friends for. So we're getting into it. Also got a comment in here. It just says max torque when cranking hog. I don't know. I don't have much to say. I guess it fits into fitness. Anyway. Someone else wrote 5 rounds, 15 cal, assault bike, 15 burpees. The person who wrote that, I could smoke them at that. All right, first one up here. Hardest workout I've ever done. So this is funny. I was thinking about this, and I don't think I have one that stands out to me. I do think the hardest workouts are basically any workouts that have repeated rounds of 1 to 2 minutes of cardio. So like, because I think like any of the classic CrossFit workouts, like Helen, where you have 3 rounds of kettlebell swings, pull-ups, and running. I was also thinking Kelly, which is a 5-rounder. It's like 30 wall ball shots, 30 box jumps, and I think it's a 400-meter run. And the reason I think those workouts are so hard, because one of the only things, as you start to get fitter, one of the only things that holds you back on runs, even if you're just like getting into it, is your willingness to push harder and dig deeper and hurt more. And I think those become some of the hardest workouts, because it's almost like just a bottomless spiral straight to hell of seeing how bad you want it. So I think those are some of the hardest workouts, like workouts of moderate level of complexity, moderate loading with some sort of cardio in it. One of the worst workouts, I remember this because I was relatively out of shape when I tested it, was I think it was called like Nasty Nancy. It was from the online games qualifiers that they did during the COVID year. It was like 5 rounds of like a long run. Might have been 400 meters, maybe not 800 meters. And then it was like burpees and overhead squats at 185. And that workout just like put me in a coffin, man. It was so brutal. But one of the hardest workouts I think I've ever done was, when we did the first year, and this is coming up, so it'd be good to talk about it. So coming up this month, end of the month, the Big Fish Foundation, which is a veteran support nonprofit. Every year they do a Big Fish fundraiser. It's a 30-hour event where they grab some athletes and they partner them up with veterans from each branch of the military. And they do this 30-hour event together, and there's different physical challenges. And, man, it's just beautiful. I'm sad to miss it this year, but they got an awesome lineup of athletes. I'm sure it'll be a beautiful event. If you ever get to like watch it, take part of it, it's just, even if the volunteers are amazing, every part of it is great. Big group of people, shared common experience, working hard, celebrating each other, working through the shit. It's just awesome. And just having a good time and supporting a great cause. But the first year they did it, it was basically as long as you could go. On 1 hour, you'd had to complete 2.5 miles on a true form. And then top of the next hour, you'd go do 2.5 miles on the trail. And so the way it worked is like, if you finish and you just keep doing that until you quit. And this was for, I think, one of the hardest events I've ever done. But it's probably not something a lot of people would just go out and try. But I encourage you to do it. Just go out and try it. If you got 10 hours of it, 13, 14 hours of it, you get 2 hours of it, you get to kind of get the picture. But why, the way it worked is if you finish the 2.5 miles, let's say in 45 minutes, you couldn't start your next 2.5 miles. You had to wait to the top of the next hour. I've talked about this before, but I think the guy who, won it that year was in his, 60th hour. I think that year I finished like 27 hours. and then I redid it and got further. And then the second, when I redid it, I did it with Brian Chantosh. I think he did 100 hours. The reason this was hard is because I so vividly recall the shitty, just broken mental self-talk I had with myself when I quit the first time around. Same on the second time around, but much less. I pushed deeper into it second time around. But the first time around, I remember exactly that self-talk and that talk in my head. And then as soon as I quit the first time, as soon as I fucking quit, like as soon as I said, I'm out, and they asked, are you sure? And I said, yep. And I stepped off the runner. As soon as I fucking quit and that clock hit the top of the next hour, I was like, I could do more, man. I just like that feeling. And so it was hard from that point of like it was one of those moments where I was like, I want to remember exactly what this feels like. I want to think about it often, not to punish myself, but so when I get into this position again, when I start having this feeling in my head, I can remember this, and I can be like, how bad you felt when you were doing the event, but how much worse you felt as soon as you quit and you realized you could do more. And it was hard. That workout was hard because it did break the shit out of me, but also it just made me confront so much that I thought about myself that turned out it wasn't there. And it wasn't there in that event. Similarly, one of the hardest events was 2014 games. I'm old. CrossFit Games, competed as an individual. But there was this event called the Sprint Carry, and it was 4 time. You sprinted 100 yards. You picked up a weighted rogue. They had these like pills. They're big pills. They called it a cylinder. It was a weighted 100-pound cylinder. You threw it on your shoulder. You sprinted 100 yards. You sprinted 100 yards back. You picked up a sandbag that weighed 120, sprinted 100 yards, sprinted 100 yards back. And then you picked up a 150-pound cylinder, sprinted 100 yards. And I remember that I tried so hard on this workout, and I tried hard, and I thought I did well, and I looked left to right, and I was the last one. I was like one of the last people to finish that workout. And that was hard. Again, not like in the middle of it, like physically suffering. That was hard because I was pushing at max effort, and I sucked. So that's what was hard about that. But as far as the hardest workout, man, I don't have one off the top of my head. I do think pretty much any of the CrossFit workouts where you have you got to end on a moderate row or run, or you have repeated rounds of like running and then like moderate to light weights and moderate to easy complexity of gymnastic movements. Because again, I think what's so hard about those workouts is really the pretty much all of the open workouts. I think all of the open workouts are some of the hardest workouts I've ever done because typically they fit that category. And the only thing that holds you back, like once you kind of have the skills and this, level of strength, what holds you back there is just yourself. That tiny little person in your head who says, "Hey, you know what? You're hurting. Step on the brake a little bit." And I think those are the hardest. So, yeah. All right, there's that one. Sorry, not a super satisfying answer. I'll throw some of the hardest ones, I think, in the little episode description. Next question. Someone wrote, evidence that you hit intensity. People often think they do, but didn't really. Okay, I have a couple things to say about this one. I get where the coach is coming from. But here's the deal. If we want to really dork out about this, intensity, as CrossFit's defined it, is just force times distance divided by time, right? It's just average power. So what that means is like, as long as you could measure it, you could measure those force times distance divided by time roughly, you could measure somebody's intensity. And, any workout you do, you have some level of intensity. So obviously what coach here is getting at is, they're hitting the CrossFit goal of high intensity. And I don't know, this is something, man, some people would be like, you're moving the goalpost, you're getting too soft on this. I don't think that's the case because I've seen a lot of success. I've seen other people that I've coached have a lot of success. I'm not saying that's attributed to me. CrossFit works pretty damn well, even if I'm not applying it perfectly. But remember that intensity is relative, and it's relative based on psychological and physiological tolerance. So if somebody comes in, and they are pushing toward that higher realm of their psychological and physiological tolerance, they're going to see adaptation from the program. And the other thing is, which is really cool about variance, is that you don't have to have there's no predetermined ceiling of intensity that you need to hit in order for the thing to work. I think the consistency is more important. The only time I start to get a little weird about this one, in two scenarios. One scenario is if I see people who are always like the scale uppers. They want to scale way up all the time, and they always are dead fucking last in the workout. I should try another swearing challenge. We've been doing one at work. But anyway, the people who are the always scale uppers or the refuse to scalers and are always dead last in the workout, I might just kind of chat with, especially if it start holding up the class or they're way over the timeline, I'll probably chat with them a little bit to tune some things up, get them a little closer to the time goal. The other one is people who just start to complain about results. Not complain, but people who are like, I want more results. I'm not seeing enough results. Then we'll probably start to talk about like adding more purpose, intensity, effort to their workouts. So that's where I sit with that one. As far as giving them kind of evidence or carrot, you gotta work harder, coaches. It's not always going to happen at the whiteboard when you got to hit a 10-minute stimulus, and then athletes are going to go out and do it. You got to work harder. Sometimes you got to work one-on-one with somebody, ask them what do they want to get out of this workout, give them very specific, narrow goals. I always think of sometimes being the coach, you got to be likable, but you're kind of one of the most annoying people, like one of those kids you went to school with, and they were just annoying, always asking questions. Because you're always always poking their nose into stuff. I see people in the gym just doing stuff, warming up, doing stuff. I tell them to do one thing, they're doing something a little different. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing that for? Oh, because I really want to do X, Y, and Z. Hey, cool. If you're going to do X, Y, and Z, you got to at least give me this. You're constantly involved in everything they do. So I think if you want to absolutely give them evidence on that, yeah, there you go. That's all I have to say. Hope that was more helpful than it sounded to me. Get this. I've heard this one like a million times. All of us CrossFit workout dorks have talked about this. If you could only do one CrossFit movement for the rest of your life, what would it be? Man, this answer has changed so much. I'm assuming I still get to run because I think you got to be able to run, and it's changed. It used to just be the thruster. I thought the thruster was the one because you can definitely go heavier. But now, as I've stepped a little further away from competition, when I used to like overhead squat and snatch a lot more, man, I'll tell you, when I start sprinkling in the squat snatches back into the fitness program, they're uncomfortable at first, but man, everything else starts getting way better. So I might say squat snatch, maybe tied with thruster. Yeah, it's close. It's close. Someone wrote Ageless Wonder. Thank you very much. Someone also wrote haircut looks good. Thank you. My mom wrote in, who's your mom? You are. Then there's my buddy, he wrote just the Z's, the snores. All right, that's what we got today. Friday Fitness Files. Kind of just covered a mixed bag. I got an awesome note from somebody I used to train with, coach worked out with back at CrossFit New England, not CrossFit New England, CrossFit One Nation. And which she wrote, and I think this is what I'll hit next week. I just wanted more time to prep for it, but she said, as a former competitive athlete, transitioning into different space can be challenging. So her topic is like aging through CrossFit. All of the early adopters and people who competed in CrossFit games early on may be experiencing this transition. Maybe you too. She's saying that to me. She said, I'm 52 now, etc. Curious to hear your input on that. So I think that's what I'm going to hit next week. This is actually somebody else actually asked the same question. And even though I feel like I've had some challenges and some ups and downs with like aging through CrossFit, and especially stepping out of competition, it's not something I feel like I've given a ton of thought about. I definitely have not articulated it in any specific way. So selfishly, good challenge for me, and I thought it was a really, really cool question. So there we go. Friday Fitness Files in the bag. Hope no one fell asleep. Appreciate you, and more tomorrow.